Welcome to episode 4 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar, your go-to destination for expert perspectives and valuable insights from the world of business. Today, I'm here with Sean Piotrowski, a regional CTO of New Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia for higher education and academic medical centers at Microsoft. Now, before we get into the questions, I would like to thank Mr. Piotrowski for being a guest on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
All right, so let's start with the first question. Can you share a little bit about your background and journey on becoming who you are today, and how did your extensive time in the Rider community impact your career trajectory?
Good question. I started out as a Rider undergraduate, majoring in computer information systems, as it was called back then. Now it's just information systems. I knew that going into Rider that's what I wanted to major in. So from the very beginning, I was kind of focused on that kind of career path of learning the skills necessarily to function in business and aligning technology to achieve those business goals that were a focus of the CIS major. From there, I got a job as a student worker my sophomore year at Rider in the Office of Information Technology, where I was directly helping with student troubleshooting issues. Rider provided end user support to students at the time, and I got my start with a campus job there doing that. And I had that job for all 3 years after. So freshman year, I didn't work with OIT, but from sophomore year on, I did. While I was finishing my degree at Rider, Rider offered me a full-time job to become the university's first help desk employee. So further setting me off on the path of kind of IT and end user support. That was a part of my early career. All started at Rider through the Rider help desk at the Office of Information Technology. Once I graduated from Rider, I stayed as a full-time employee at Rider from 2001 to 2008. I had different roles. I ended by leading all student support services. We had a laptop program in the School of Business at the time, where every School of Business student had a laptop. And then I also had a team of about 8 people who helped me with the on-campus support that I led. From there, I went and worked at Princeton University for 6 years as an embedded technical specialist, working in the German, Slavic, and history departments, supporting Princeton's faculty directly. And then from there, I went to IBM for 3 years in the Watson Group, where I was subject matter expert on cognitive technologies. And then did a year at a company called iSIMS in the HR tech space, leading their cloud services division, leading their Microsoft 365, Azure, Salesforce, NetSuite teams there before coming to Microsoft, where I've been for the past 5 years now, where I've had various roles, starting as a technical account manager and becoming a customer success account manager. For the past 2 years, I've been, I appreciate using the title on my LinkedIn, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I'm an account technology strategist, where I do operate as a chief technology officer for all of my customers in Philadelphia, Delaware, and New Jersey. So I appreciate you taking my LinkedIn headline for face value, but I am an account technology strategist by trade. But yeah, how did being at Rider influence my career? Well, very simply, by being at Rider, I learned that working in higher education was a career choice. I did not know or even begin to think when I started my studies at Rider that working for a university was a career path. And I learned very quickly through my student employment work that was a path. So the first 13 years of my career were spent in higher education, like I said, at Rider and Princeton. And now at Microsoft, because of that deep bench of experience I had in higher education, I'm now part of Microsoft Education, working directly with higher education customers and academic medical centers because of that past experience. So Rider, direct hands in where I am today, from an experiential standpoint, for sure.
And what skills would you say that transferred best to the jobs that you do right now from Rider and all the education experiences you've had?
Yeah, great question. The skill that I learned very quickly that I had that has basically carried me through my entire career is my ability to listen to not only very technical people, but also non-technical people, and being able to translate back and forth. So if I'm working with a non-technical person and I have to bring them up to speed on something highly technical, the ability to make that translation for them, or to take something that is that has to go from someone who's non-technical and bring their concerns and translate to someone who's highly technical. That's probably been my strongest skill that I've had through my career. And then obviously the listening aspect of that. So that has been something that has been touted from people that I've worked for from the first day on the job at Ryder, working as a student support person, all the way to the job I have today. And I've picked up and built other skills along the way, but that's the one that's been most consistent. And that's been the one I think that's led me to the greatest amount of success that I've had.
Yeah, and I'm already seeing that as a business student, yet also minoring in computer science at a prominent business school. I feel the ability to understand technology at a high level or at a somewhat high level and being able to translate it in business terms is very valuable, at least. And Ryder's been preparing me for that even as I'm in my freshman year.
That's good to hear. I mean, I can't tell you, Brandon, how many people I've encountered in my career who are very knowledgeable, experts in their field, but struggle to convey their important message or concerns or critical requirements because they don't have that ability to translate, right? They can speak to other highly technical people, but the second you put them in front of business leadership or an end user or some other stakeholder, they fall on their face, right? So that's where the critical role of people like you and I come into play to support those people to make them successful in business.
Yeah, definitely. So let's lead on to the next question. So, what key advice would you offer to what key advice would you offer to individuals aspiring for success but feel uncertain about where to begin?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because I was definitely in that boat, right? Like I didn't know where I was gonna go, where I was gonna begin. Um, and I remember very vividly my junior year, I had a conversation with a professor at Rider, Dr. Bill Amadio, who was a mentor of mine, one of a few mentors I've had at my time at Rider. And I remember sitting in his office and I said to Dr. Amadio, I said, "Hey, listen, Dr. Amadio, all of my classmates are getting internships this year. And I have this job in OIT. Should I be considering an internship?" And he very bluntly said to me, he said, "Sean, you're getting the same level of experience in this job that other people are getting in an internship, except you're getting paid for it and you didn't have to go through a highly competitive vetting process." He's like, "You've been there for the last 2 years. They know who you are. You're probably fine." And that's probably one of the best pieces of advices I got to help set me on my path. So I guess my advice would be to really take a look around you. What are you doing? Right? If you are someone who is doing code development for fun on the side, you're building your own little games for fun, you're developing websites or building things in the cloud to support, like when I was in my graduate school, I had a side business where I was developing websites for nonprofit organizations that I worked with. Look around at the things that you do outside of school, right? You may be doing something that is your first step in your career already, right? And if you kind of realize that, lean into it and continue to develop and double down on that experience. Because what'll happen is if you're able to leverage that experience that you've been building the entire time you've been in school, when you graduate, instead of saying, "I'm Brandon Salazar, Rider graduate with no years of experience," you could say, "I'm Brandon Salazar. I got 2, 3, or 4 years of experience doing X," which helps you stand up apart from everyone else that's graduating with the same degree, going for the same job as you, but they have 0 years of experience.
Yeah, and I definitely see what you mean by like finding a skill and using it in real life. So for example, as of a few months ago, I've been tutoring children in coding. And not only is it unique from what I thought it was going to be, it's different because it's not just my understanding of coding, it's how I explain it to other people, nonetheless children. So it's definitely something that I would assume would be beneficial to for an employer to see that they can not only learn stuff, but then they could effectively teach it. So
So I would say to you, taking that experience that you've had, right? I would be capturing that on my resume by saying, code training, code instruction, programming instruction, whatever it is. Just because it's volunteer and you're not getting paid for it, if there's somebody that you're volunteering with at an organization, let's say at the YMCA or through, Boy Scouts of America, whatever the organization is that you're doing that time with, as long as there's somebody there that vouches for, yeah, hey, Brandon did do this for 3 years for us, you're golden. You could put that down. That's relevant, So keep doing that. That's wonderful to hear.
I also do just want to clarify, it is paid. I have like
Okay.
a few, yeah, it's just customers I have back at home, but
Got it. Even better.
yes,
Like I said,
yes,
hopefully you've established Brandon at Salazar LLC, and putting that on your resume is very valid. A wonderful piece of advice I got from a vice president that I worked for a year named Len Corella was make sure you have an LLC and you put that on your LinkedIn and your resume, because even when you're out of work, as long as you got that LLC, you're consulting.
that's a good point. All right, so then moving on to, can you talk about a pivotal moment or decision in your career that significantly impacted your trajectory?
Yes, that's a good one. And probably one I don't think about enough. But the decision to leave Princeton and leave higher education and go to IBM was probably the biggest. In two ways. One, it was me going to private industry for the first time in my career. I was nervous about that. My my first boss that I worked for at IBM, one day pulled me aside and was like, you always double check and verify things to a level that I don't think you need to do. And I told him very transparently, I was like, I'm doing that because I don't know what it means to work in industry. It's my first time. I worked in higher education for a long time. I know how things are done there, and I don't know that they necessarily translate here. So I just want to be sure. I want to build that confidence. And once he understood that, then we were good. But yeah, leaving higher education in 2014 and making that decision to come to IBM, and I've been in industry ever since, was probably the biggest and most important. Now, I kept my hands in higher education. I was an adjunct instructor at Rider, and also at Albright College from 2009 to 2022. So I did kind of keep my hand in the higher education space through that, teaching courses for the information systems program, computer science program, the cybersecurity program at Rider, and then also the College of the professional studies group at Albright College as well was the last course I taught. So I did have a hand in higher ed there, but that was primarily for, I don't want to say for fun, but it was a side thing. I was very passionate about teaching at the time, and like you, working with students to help build and their understanding and their skills for people that were interested in a career path like this. But, again, making my main primarily living in industry and walking away from higher ed, definitely the most important thing, because here I am now at Microsoft, which was always a dream of mine to work at. It took me 10 years to get here. When I was at Princeton and I decided I was ready to leave higher ed and I wanted to work in industry, I was interested in working at Microsoft. And I applied for jobs for Microsoft from, I believe, yeah, no, actually, take that back. When before I left Rider and I wanted to go to Princeton, I started working on applications to Microsoft. So I was at Rider applying for jobs here. So from around 2008 and beyond, I regularly applied for jobs at Microsoft. Never even got a call back, not one time. But I kept at it, and 10 years later, I got the job that I have, put me on the career path that I'm on today. So yeah, not leaving higher education for sure, probably the most important decision, most critical decision I've ever had in my career for sure.
I mean, yeah, that's all great to hear. But and also leading on with Microsoft, as we were just talking about that, what's your favorite part about working there, and what do you find that is the most impactful to your life about working at such a big company like Microsoft?
So this is true. I'll answer this question in a couple different ways. First of all, my experience working at IBM and Microsoft, you think very big companies. At no point in my 3 years at IBM or now my 5 years at Microsoft do I feel like I'm a number in a spreadsheet, right? I feel like I'm part of a team, and my feedback matters. The things that I do have an impact. That's true. Was true of me at IBM. It's true. I work with a larger team here at Microsoft. being part of Microsoft Education, which covers all of the United States, and we have hundreds of people in our team. You know, I have a relationship with the woman who leads Microsoft Education, like Lydia Smyers. I know her. We've worked together. We've collaborated on things, right? With the work of the customers that I support. You know, that's a kind of a big deal. I didn't necessarily regularly work with the head of the Watson division at IBM, right? And the two organizations are kind of interchangeable in their size, right, and importance to the organizations that they are part of. So the fact that I do, you know, and the leadership in between, my boss and the head of Microsoft Education, I've worked with a lot of those leaders. You know, they know who I am. We've partnered and worked on things, which is a phenomenal experience and something I wouldn't change for the world. So at no point have I ever felt like really in a big company. The other thing that I would say that is my two things about working at Microsoft that are my favorite as well are the culture at Microsoft. You hear a lot of things in the news about what the culture of Microsoft is, and it's very true, 100% true. There's nothing that you don't hear in the news about what Microsoft does from a corporate cultural standpoint that isn't true about working there. And it's one of the things that I realized very quickly about being here was that there was no bull about that. That's 100% true. And it makes me want to be part of this organization and continue to be here. And I would love to work here for the rest of my career. And the other thing is the job that I have today. Being an account technology strategist and being that virtual CTO for my customers, it's the best job I've ever had. Every day I'm working with the same, you know, 5 to 7 organizations that I've worked with for the past 5 years, but we're solving new problems every day, right? It's not like I'm stuck working on the same project for 3, 6, 7 months, right? It's every conversation I have with my customers is different. We're solving new problems. We're learning about new challenges. We're partnering together to achieve those goals. So every day is something different, right? And you know, my customers look to me to help set the strategy and the vision for them as it relates to their digital transformation. And that feels great to be looked at as a leader, as an expert. That they put their trust in me to help them navigate these challenges, right? That's kind of the most rewarding experience I've had outside of leading a team. You know, when I was in leadership in the past, that was very rewarding for me too. So the two things have been great experiences to have in my career.
Yeah, it must truly be like profound and meaningful to see like the work that you do actually be used in the real world. I mean, me personally, I don't think there's anything more important than that, and just being able to make an impact in some sort of way. So
Yeah, to build on that real quick, recently I work with Rowan University, big, you know, state university in South Jersey. I've worked with them for all 5 years. I've been at Microsoft pretty much, and we recently Microsoft's marketing team did a case study and partnered with Rowan to say, hey, listen, we've done a lot of things over these past 5 years. It's very unique what Rowan's done. We want to capture that and we want to publicize that to the world. So Rowan's leadership came together with our marketing team, and there was like a back and forth interviews and things like that. Just a couple weeks ago, formally was published on the Microsoft website. It's a big moment for Rowan, big moment for me. You know, while I wasn't personally named in the case study, I know that the things that they're talking about that they say are big impacts and differentiators for them and his organization are things that I've worked on. So there's no greater reward than, you know, again, to your point, Brandon, seeing that work that you've put in over time and then recognized in a way like that is really incredible and really rewarding.
yeah, so I'm actually really interested in case studies. So I was projected to do Johnson& Johnson case study next semester, although it got moved to the spring semester. So that's something I'm really excited for because we actually work with teams from Johnson& Johnson, which I believe is similar to what you were saying with how they work with teams from people with Microsoft. So that's definitely an experience I'm looking forward to because all I've heard about is amazing things.
Awesome.
So, and then leading on to our final question is what technologies do you believe will revolutionize your industry that you're in and how?
I'm sure you're going to know what my answer is going to be, but it's probably AI right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it, generative AI. You know, Brandon, I've had the opportunity to be part of 2 AI waves. Back at IBM with the Watson Group, you know, IBM was leading the charge with certain AI technologies back then, building on the success that they had by having Watson on Jeopardy in 2011. I'm sure you were a small child at that time, but hopefully you remember that back then. But The Watson division was founded in 2014 to build on that success, and it ushered a brand new wave and awareness around AI and how it can impact business, right? And there's a lot of things that have happened with IBM and their AI strategy since then. A lot of, and I, won't get into that here. That's not the purpose of our conversation. But here we are now in another wave of that with generative AI, and Microsoft has leaned into this opportunity in a very unique way that IBM did not, and we see it impacting all aspects of Microsoft products and services. That's very fascinating, right? And then we're seeing other businesses and other organizations incorporate AI technologies into their solutions and building new solutions and partnering with OpenAI or building their own, like Meta and Google and Amazon are doing, right? So AI is everywhere. AI is impacting the businesses that leverage it in big ways. And it's even impacting you, Brandon, I would imagine, as a student, right? The
Yep.
way that
Yep.
you now probably go about authoring a paper
Yep.
for your professors is now within a year, that whole paradigm has probably been flipped on its head. And you've lived that. Probably, I know you're a freshman, but you probably wrote papers in high school. And now when you write a paper in college, you have a whole different approach available to you that is mind-blowing, right? Thinking about, we were talking before we started recording, you were saying you stay up late, right? Working on, I was in that case. I was a political science minor at Rider, and there would be many times I'd be writing papers for Dr. Rebovich. It'd be 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm only a paragraph in, right? Struggling to come up with that next 4 or 5 paragraphs that he wanted. So if I had had generative AI available to me all those years ago, it would have helped me probably go to bed a lot sooner, right? But we're all experiencing that change now. And I don't know that we know the we clearly don't know the full ramifications on how it will impact society as a whole. But we're seeing it, unfold before our very eyes. The way that, I saw the internet change our society, right? When I was a kid, I didn't have the internet until we had a computer in 1994, and I dialed up to something called CompuServe, and I didn't have a cable modem until I was in college, actually, believe it or not. I think it was my summer of my freshman year, we finally got a cable modem, right? So the internet kind of slowly being adopted into my life, and so seeing that happen to the rest of society, this is a profound shift on that level. I think it's gonna definitely change not only business, but the world as a whole forever.
Yeah, and there's a misconception that AI is almost cheating. Well, I can't say that it's not cheating, but if you think of it like this, think of input and output. You could rate input from a scale of 1 to 10, and you could get output of a scale of 1 to 10. You input quality work that's 8 or 9, you might get a 9 or 10. It's not that like you're going to input a 1 on input and then get a 10. It's not really how AI works. It's also called prompt engineering. You have to engineer it to make it better. So it's not like it's cheating, but I wouldn't say
So
it's not.
to prove your point, Brandon, the name of all the Microsoft AI technologies are called Copilot.
Yeah,
They're not called Autopilot,
yeah,
right? And when I was at IBM, we described that as human expert, right? You were trying to make an expert system that would support a human expert, right? And that where the human expert would interface with the expert system to generate information or output that would make the human expert better at their job or make better decisions about their job, right? That's how we described it in 2014. Now it's, to your point, garbage in, garbage out has
yeah.
always been the true in technology. But if you're putting well thought out and constructing well thought prompts that are putting, that's a job in itself, right? If you're taking 2 paragraphs of prompts to output a 5-page research paper, I mean, that's a skill. And that,
Yeah.
if that research paper comes out and you're not submitting it, you're reading it, you're reviewing it, you're making tweaks, right? It's saving you time, but it's not doing the work for you. You still have to do a level of work on top of the output, right? To your point. So, I mean, I would imagine we're going to get to a point too where prompt engineering is a skill that we'll remember fondly because prompt engineering won't even be a thing, right?
I mean, yeah. It's
So
the point of it's to optimize process is not it's not like it's going to do the input itself, get a good input, edit the input, and then output something magical.
right,
It's for optimization of tasks.
exactly right. So
Also, sorry.
go ahead. No.
Speaking about history, it's ironic to see how you started with IBM talking about AI, then Microsoft and IBM was a leader in AI for a long part of the history. I remember they made like a chess artificial
Oh yeah.
intelligence chess that beat the world champion in chess like two times, and it was a whole
Yep.
drama. But
Yep.
that
Yeah,
was
that's
something that was unique.
I was in middle school the first time that happened. Gary Kasparov was the
Yeah,
guy, and it was Big Blue and Deep Blue were the two
yeah,
computers. There's actually a documentary that
yeah. I
talks about
watched it.
the second match. Hopefully, you've seen that. It's really good. But you're right. IBM, if you want to go back to the early 90s, IBM was a leader in artificial intelligence at that time, and I would say through 2017 that was probably true too. I would say
Until
there's
OpenAI.
and then
Until
OpenAI
OpenAI.
comes. And the thing that's interesting, Brandon, about OpenAI is when I said before IBM had Watson on Jeopardy in 2011.
Yeah,
What was Watson doing on Jeopardy? It was answering questions. And I can't tell you, Brandon, in those first couple of years I was at IBM, people would say to me all the time, because I was an expert on the system that came out of the Jeopardy bot. Why doesn't IBM just sell the Jeopardy bot? Was a question I got all the time. Why don't they do that? And I never got a good answer. I got a lot of different answers, but never got a good one. But to trivialize everything that OpenAI has done is they basically developed the Watson bot, but instead of trading it on Wikipedia, which is what IBM did for the Jeopardy bot, they trained it on the whole internet. And I think the ability for them to do that was because compute power got more powerful, got cheaper as well, and you had the ability to scale better because the cloud was more robust at the time, right? Microsoft provided the compute power for OpenAI to build the models that they've come up with. Or IBM doesn't have a cloud on that scale, so they didn't have that compute power in 2014 to do it, right? So they had to just do Wikipedia at the time. And I think that was probably the differentiation, right? And Microsoft has figured out a way, and OpenAI has figured out a way to make that a viable product, right? And that's what started all this, right? And then now you're seeing we're going to develop smaller, more nimble models that will solve particular problems around domains of math or biological science or whatever. Or in my case, I have a bot that I built that answers questions around Magic the Gathering rules. That's all it does is plugged into one text file that has every rule for Magic the Gathering in it. And I have people that I play with that ask complex questions to it, and we're getting really great responses. Right. And that's just one text file leveraging the generative AI capabilities that have been developed in the last 2 years, 3 years. Right. And that's transforming just a hobby that I have. Right. So think about with smaller, more nimble models and fine tuned data sets, how impactful they could be to organizations solving specific, unique problems.
yep. When hobbyists' ideas turn into reality, it's when things like Facebook and such other companies come
Yeah.
to rise. Like, for example, I was actually using generative AI to. It didn't end up working a few months ago. I ended up trying to text like English text to math. So 2 + 2 is 4, but you write it in English. And obviously you have to factor in that it's not going to always be spelled perfectly how you want to spell it. So you have to make an algorithm. That's where I actually failed at it. But I didn't know how to make an algorithm to have it if it's in lowercase, if it's not spelled correct, if it's like making a percentile to make it accuracy. So if they typed TO instead of TWO, it would still calculate it as 2, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Anyways,
now you can leverage generative AI to develop that algorithm code for you, because
yeah.
that is one thing that the GPTs are very powerful at, is helping synthesize code to solve programming challenges, right? So maybe you can get that algorithm finally built.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, and that's our last question. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us. And that wraps up episode 4 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar. We hope you've enjoyed gaining insights from our guests and exploring the world of business with us. Don't forget to check out the podcast on our social media at the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast on YouTube and Instagram for upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.